How much confidence do you have in the Speaker right now?
None. Zero. What basis is there for confidence? You cannot forfeit the tool of Republican unity. It was not necessary to do.
Is the Speaker lying about the way he's characterizing this bill?
Yes, he's lying. But the bill is chock full of things that are cosmetic and artificial that have the same exact effect.
Who do you think would have done a better job negotiating this than Speaker McCarthy? Who you think should be in the Speaker's chair?
Well, there are 434 other members of Congress. Nobody could have done a worse job.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
In case you missed it, Republicans are eating each other alive today after an extensive back and forth over the debt ceiling. On the one hand, you have Conservatives lambasting Kevin McCarthy openly in press conferences.
McCarthy has lost some trust in how this has been handled.
What I said was we got to re-look at how our leadership structure is in place, something like that on Glenn's show, because we can't do what we're doing right now. We were being very successful for 5 months. This was a mistake. We abandoned the structure that was making us successful, so we're going to have to rethink it all. What was emphatically clear in all of our conversations in January was that we would be reporting things out of the Rules Committee unanimously, and right now that is in jeopardy.
Who do you think would have done a better job negotiating this than Speaker McCarthy? Who you think should be in the Speaker's chair?
Well, there are 434 other members of Congress. Nobody could have done a worse job.
Well, so who
nobody could have done a worse job, even the Democrats?
Oh, excuse me. I shouldn't have said it that way. There are 222 members of the Republican Conference. Nobody in the Republican Conference could have done a worse job.
What will the Freedom Caucus do if the people who are objecting to this bill get overridden? If the Republicans get overridden by a Republican speaker teaming up with Democrats to pass this bill?
Again, I think the operative question there is whether or not the Speaker can get to a majority of the majority. If a majority of Republicans are against a piece of legislation and you use Democrats to pass it, that would immediately be a black letter violation of the deal we had with McCarthy to allow his ascent to the speakership, and it would likely trigger an immediate motion to vacate.
And then on the other hand, you have Kevin McCarthy himself openly defending child labor laws?
For things we bought that we can return, like COVID money, money to China and others, we're bringing that back. We might have a child that has no job, no dependents, but sitting on a couch. We're going to encourage that person to get a job and have to go to work, which gives them worth and value. We're going to look at other things, too, to make the economy stronger.
Did I hear that right? Anyway, this comes after the Fiscal Responsibility Act was presented, a product of a deal to cap federal baseline spending for 2 years in exchange for Republican votes to raise the debt ceiling beyond next year's elections and into 2025.
On the biggest issues facing our country. Now, divided government means negotiated deals. It means nobody gets everything they want. But in this case, it means the American people got a whole lot more progress toward fiscal sanity than Washington Democrats wanted to give them. Speaker McCarthy and House Republicans deserve our thanks. This spring, they passed the only viable legislation that both preserved our nation's full faith and credit and made real progress toward getting federal spending under control. House Republicans' unity forced President Biden to do his job. It's really just that simple. And now Congress will vote on legislation that locks in that important progress. Republicans have a tremendous opportunity to take on an existential challenge facing our economy and future generations of Americans. We have a chance to start bringing Washington Democrats' reckless spending to heel. Soon, it will be the Senate's turn to put this historic agreement on the President's desk. Let's not pass up our shot.
The bill needs to pass the GOP majority House, of course, and the Democratic-controlled Senate before June 5th. But a group of at least 20 conservative Republicans rejected the compromise deal Tuesday and accused McCarthy of caving in to the White House in exchange for, quote, cosmetic policy tweaks and not the transformative change they were promised.
No idea what that number is going to look like. Some people are saying $4 trillion. Some people are saying $3.5 trillion. This bill, in year one, might cut $12 billion if you just want to be generous. So who here thinks it's cool to cut $12 billion in exchange for $4 trillion? I don't think that's cool at all. This bill actually keeps the Biden baseline intact for the federal agencies.
Tomorrow's bill is a bunch of fake news and fake talking points that will do nothing to rein in out of control federal spending. If every Republican voted the way that they campaigned, they would vote against tomorrow's bad deal, because this is the very thing that we all campaigned to put an end to.
Which basically means, well, they're upset that the people set to benefit from this negotiation are not the uber wealthy and the 1% that they're in the pockets of. Meaning they don't get the financial crash they wanted so badly to run on.
Say to voters as they look at the numbers on the screen right now.
You know, I think it is early. I think we've got to look at Biden's numbers, and that's where I think Republicans should be paying attention to his low approval. This is not a president that the American people feel is doing a good job on their behalf. The vast majority of Americans feel like we're not heading in the right track. And then you look at this debt ceiling crisis, you look at us about to default, and you see that the president took 90 days out from negotiating. He refused to come to the table with Republicans. Republicans have put a plan on the table. And this is an MIA president when it comes to problems that the American people are facing, whether it's energy independence, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's a broken border, whether it's crime surging in our streets. This is a president that is failing the American people. So I think that bodes very well for the Republican field.
But as Minority Speaker Hakeem Jeffries put it perfectly, this is why they're really upset.
For arriving at a resolution that does three important things. First, President Biden has avoided a catastrophic default, which would crash the economy and hurt millions of everyday Americans. Second, President Biden has arrived at a resolution that would suspend the debt ceiling for at least 2 years and avoid a hostage-taking situation for the balance of the 118th Congress. Third, President Biden has arrived at a resolution that protects incredibly important democratic interests. The resolution reached by President Biden protects Social Security, protects Medicare, protects Medicaid, protects veterans, protects the clean energy tax credits, protects the American people from the type of draconian cuts that were included in the extreme MAGA Republican Default on America Act, and it protects vulnerable communities like the homeless and like individuals who are aging out of foster care. I'm thankful for President Biden's leadership and confident that we will avoid a catastrophic default.
And Democrat Jim McGovern perfectly echoed this statement, pointing out that Republicans are all of a sudden up in arms over spending when they took no issue to adding $2 trillion in debt to offer tax cuts to billionaires under Trump.
Some of the things that they are pushing couldn't pass the House and couldn't pass the Senate, never mind get a presidential signature on their own merits. They bullied their way to this moment. They didn't seem to be so bothered by the deficit when Trump was in office, when they added over $2 trillion to the debt for tax cuts for billionaires. They're only ever really worried about spending when a Democrat is in the White House.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.